The first time Razor saw Ayanna Carter was the moment he sealed his fate. His gang ruled these streets through fear, their leather jackets and cold stares making even grown men step aside. So when this 17-year-old girl walked straight through their circle outside Mr. Kwan's store, looked Razor in the eye, and refused his command to smile, something dangerous ignited in him. The video Slick recorded of her walking away spread through underground channels with a caption that promised retribution. Rumors were planted, threats were made, a tire was slashed. But what they didn't see in that quiet, confident stride was 12 years of karate discipline under Coach Takashi's watchful eye. What they couldn't recognize in those steady hands was the precision of a black belt who taught self-defense to younger girls every weekend. By the time they realized their mistake, it would be too late. The hunter would become the hunted, and Ayanna Carter would teach them exactly what happens when you mistake composure for weakness. Just before we get back to it, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. And if you're enjoying these stories, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow's special episode is one you definitely don't want to miss. The evening air hung heavy with humidity as Ayanna Carter made her way down the cracked sidewalk toward home. Her karate gi was neatly folded in her backpack, the black belt hidden from view. Not that she'd ever flaunt it. At 17, Ayanna had mastered the art of being simultaneously invisible and unmistakable. Tall for her age with close-cropped natural hair that framed intense brown eyes, she moved with the fluid confidence of someone who knew exactly what her body was capable of. "Hey, baby girl," her father called from the kitchen as she entered their modest apartment. James Carter stood at the stove, stirring something that smelled deliciously of garlic and spices. His security guard uniform was hung neatly on the back of a chair, ready for tomorrow's shift. "Hey, Dad," Ayanna replied, dropping her backpack on the counter. "Need help?" James shook his head, the corners of his eyes crinkling with warmth. 20 years in the military had left him with impeccable posture and a spine of steel, but retirement had softened his edges. Now he worked security at the local mall, his military precision redirected toward keeping their neighborhood safe and putting food on the table. "Nah, I got this. How was class?" "Good. Coach Takashi wants me to help with the younger kids more often. Says I have a knack for it." James nodded approvingly. "That man knows talent when he sees it. Those little girls look up to you, you know." Ayanna shrugged, but inside she felt a small glow of pride. Every Saturday morning, she taught basic self-defense to a group of girls from the community center. Most were from families like hers, working hard, getting by, but always conscious of the neighborhood's growing problems. "Dad, have you noticed more of those guys hanging around the corner by Mrs. Wilson's place?" she asked, filling a glass with water. James's stirring slowed. "The ones with the leather jackets? Yeah, they're moving in on 8th Street now too. People are talking." The people James referred to were the tight-knit community that had formed, the backbone of their neighborhood for decades. Shop owners like Mr. Kwan, who'd run the corner store for 30 years. Teachers like Ms. Grayson, who'd taught 3 generations of local kids. They were good people, hard-working people, now whispering about the leather-clad newcomers who seemed to materialize on more corners each week. "Just stay clear of them, Ayanna," her father said, his voice taking on the firm edge she recognized from childhood. "Those types only bring trouble." "I know, Dad." She didn't mention that she'd already encountered them more than once. No need to worry him. After dinner, Ayanna retreated to her room to study. Her phone buzzed with a text from Lena. "You still coming to help me with that film project tomorrow?" Ayanna smiled. Lena Jackson had been her best friend since 4th grade. Bold where Ayanna was reserved, loud where Ayanna was quiet. With her bright clothes and constantly changing hairstyles, Lena aspired to be the next Ava DuVernay, filming everything and anything that caught her artistic eye. "Yeah, I'll be there. Bringing Malik too if that's cool." "Perfect. My mom's making those cookies he likes. See you at 2." Ayanna set her phone down, thinking about their little trio. If Lena was fire, Malik Thompson was earth, grounded, thoughtful, and brilliant with anything technical. The quiet genius had harbored a crush on Ayanna since middle school, something everyone knew but tactfully ignored. Together, The three of them had navigated the complicated waters of high school, forming a protective bubble around each other. She turned back to her textbook, but found her mind wandering to the encounter earlier that week. She'd stopped at Mr. Kwan's store after karate practice, needing to grab some milk for her dad. The group had been lounging outside, taking up the entire entrance. 4 of them, 3 men and 1 woman, all in matching leather jackets adorned with some kind of emblem she couldn't quite make out. The tallest one had been leaning against the doorframe, his arms covered in tattoos, a cigarette dangling from his lips. The others flanked him like satellites, a slender man with slicked back hair, a shorter but muscular guy with a twitchy energy, and a woman with hard eyes and hair dyed a brilliant purple. Ayanna had approached calmly, her gym bag slung over one shoulder. "Excuse me," she'd said politely but firmly. The tall one, clearly the leader, had looked her up and down with deliberate slowness. His friends snickered. But instead of waiting for permission, Ayanna had simply walked between them, maintaining eye contact with the leader as she passed. "Watch your tone," the twitchy one had muttered as she entered the store. Mr. Kwan had looked nervous when she approached the counter. "Ayanna, those people outside, I know, Mr. Kwan. It's fine." But it wasn't fine, not really, because when she'd thus exited the store minutes later, they were still there and the leader had stepped directly into her path. "Girl like you should smile more," he'd said, blowing smoke in her direction. "Pretty face like that." Ayanna had met his gaze steadily. "Don't tell me what to do," she'd replied, her voice even, and walked away. She'd felt their eyes on her back all the way down the block. That's when she'd noticed the slender one had his phone out, filming her. Something about the way they'd watched her retreat made her skin crawl, but she'd pushed the feeling aside. She'd dealt with worse. A knock at her bedroom door pulled Ayanna from the memory. "Come in." Her father opened the door, leaning against the frame. "Just checking if you need anything before I turn in." Ayanna shook her head. "I'm good, Dad. Thanks." He lingered, studying her face. "You sure everything's okay? You seem distracted lately." "Just school stuff. Big test coming up." James nodded, slowly, clearly not entirely convinced. "You know you can talk to me about anything, right? You don't always have to fight alone." Ayanna gave him a small smile. "Some fights find you anyway." Her father's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. It was something she'd seen many times, the face of a man who understood exactly what she meant, who'd fought battles of his own. He nodded once and closed the door. Later that night, long after her father had gone to bed, Ayanna slipped out to their small garage. The space had been converted into a simple training area years ago, a heavy bag hanging from the ceiling, a few worn mats on the floor, a full-length mirror propped against one wall. This was her sanctuary. She moved through her katas slowly, feeling each position, focusing on her breathing. The world narrowed to just this moment, just these movements. This was where she found her center. Meanwhile, across town in a dimly lit warehouse, Razor replayed the video on his phone for the 4th time. The other members of his crew watched in silence as the image of Ayanna walking away played out on the small screen. "Who does this bitch think she is?" Razor growled, his face illuminated by the blue light. At 27, he'd spent the better part of a decade building his reputation through intimidation and violence. His real name was Eric Wilson, but no one had called him that in years. To everyone in their circle, he was simply Razor, sharp, dangerous, someone you didn't cross. "I say we jump her," Tito said, pacing like a caged animal. His real name was Timothy, but that gentle name hardly fit the unpredictable, violent energy that seemed to constantly radiate from him. "Teach her some respect." "Nah," Slick interjected, smoothing his perfectly styled hair. "Too obvious. Cops are already watching us after what happened with those college kids." Nails, leaning against a stack of crates, examined her chipped purple nail polish. "She's just some high school girl. Who cares?" Razor pocketed his phone, his jaw tight. "I care. We're trying to establish ourselves here, and some teenage girl Just walked through us like we were nothing. You think people didn't see that? You think that doesn't matter?" Nails rolled her eyes but said nothing more. Jessica Thompson had earned her nickname from the steel-reinforced acrylic nails she sometimes used as weapons, but her real power came from her ability to blend in where the others couldn't, to gather information. "So what's the plan?" Slick asked, his smooth voice cutting through the tension. Of all of them, he was the thinker, the strategist. Razor smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Let's give her a show she won't forget." The morning sun had barely risen when Ayanna discovered her bike tire slashed. She knelt beside it, examining the clean cut that had deflated the rubber completely. Next to the bike lay a small leather patch, the same emblem she'd seen on the jackets of the gang at the gas station. A warning. "Great," she muttered, standing up and brushing off her jeans. She'd have to walk to school today, which meant leaving, now or being late. The walk gave her time to think, to process what was happening. They were testing her, trying to get a reaction. It was childish, really. A slashed tire. What did they expect her to do? Break down crying, storm their hangout, demanding justice? She almost laughed at the thought. By the time she reached Jefferson High, the hallways were already buzzing with students rushing to first period. Ayanna navigated through the crowd, her mind elsewhere until Lena appeared beside her, breathless and wide-eyed. "Have you seen it?" Lena demanded, grabbing Ayanna's arm. "Seen what?" Lena pulled out her phone, opening Instagram to show Ayanna a post from an account called Jefferson Truth. The post showed a blurry photo of Ayanna leaving Mr. Kwan's store, with text implying she was sleeping with one of the gang members. "What the hell?" Ayanna whispered, scanning the comments. Dozens of students had already seen it, commenting and speculating. "Who would post this?" Lena asked, her filmmaker's instinct for drama temporarily overriding her outrage. "I have a pretty good idea," Ayanna replied, her voice tight. She handed the phone back to Lena just as the first bell rang. "I've got to get to class. We'll talk at lunch." Throughout the morning, Ayanna felt the stares and whispers follow her. Some students looked at her with judgment, others with a sick curiosity. By third period, the rumor had evolved. Now she was supposedly dating the gang leader. Now she was selling drugs for them. The stories grew more outlandish with each telling. At lunch, she joined Lena and Malik at their usual table in the corner of the cafeteria. "I traced the IP address," Malik said without preamble, his voice low. Tall and lanky with glasses that were perpetually sliding down his nose, Malik had the look of someone who spent more time with computers than people. "Whoever posted that used the Wi-Fi at Ink Matters." "The tattoo shop on 10th?" Lena asked, unwrapping her sandwich. Malik nodded. "Owned by a guy named Darren Wilson. And get this, I did some digging. He's the cousin of Eric Wilson, who matches the description of the gang leader you told us about." Ayanna took this in silently. So it was definitely them. The question was, why? What did they gain from spreading rumors about a high school student they barely knew? "We should report this," Lena insisted. "This is harassment." "And say what?" Ayanna countered. "That some guys I offended by not smiling are now spreading rumors? The school administration can barely handle regular bullying, let alone gang intimidation." "So what's your plan?" Malik asked, his eyes concerned behind his glasses. "Just ignore it." Ayanna sighed. "For now, yes. They want a reaction. I'm not giving them one." But ignoring the situation proved increasingly difficult. Later that afternoon, when she should have been at the dojo for her regular training session, Ayanna found herself sitting alone on a bench in the park, turning her phone over and over in her hands. "Skipping practice is not like you," a voice said, startling her. Coach Takashi stood a few feet away, his compact frame exuding the same calm strength it always did. At 62, the Japanese-American sensei moved with the grace of someone his age, his salt and pepper hair the only indication of his years. "I didn't feel like it today," Ayanna replied, making room for him on the bench. Takashi sat beside her, his gaze fixed on the children playing on the swings across from them. "What is bothering you, Ayanna?" She hesitated, then explained the situation. The encounter at the store, the slashed tire, the rumors. Takashi listened without interruption, his expression unchanging. They're not worth the energy, she concluded. I'll just wait for them to get bored and move on. Perhaps, Takashi said thoughtfully. Or perhaps they will escalate until they get the reaction they seek. What am I supposed to do? Fight them? There's 4 of them, and they're adults. No. Fighting should always be the last resort. Takashi turned to look at her directly. But do not underestimate the danger of wounded pride. When someone feels humiliated, especially publicly, they may go to extreme lengths to restore what they perceive as balance. The warning lingered in Ayana's mind as she walked home that evening. She took a different route, staying on main streets, keeping alert. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. She wasn't wrong. Half a block behind, a woman with purple hair followed casually, stopping when Ayana stopped, window shopping when Ayana glanced back. Nails had been tracking Ayana's movements for days now, her route to school, her favorite lunch spot, the dojo where she trained 3 times a week, the community center where she taught on weekends. The next morning, Ayana found a crumpled note in her locker. Keep that attitude and we'll fix it. This is getting serious, Lena said when Ayana showed her the note. You need to report this. To who? The school? The police? What are they going to do about a vague threat? Then let me help, Lena insisted, her eyes lighting up with that familiar gleam that usually preceded her most ambitious projects. I've been wanting to do a documentary about gang intimidation in the area. This could be the perfect focal point. Absolutely not, Ayana said firmly. The last thing I need is you filming these people and making them even angrier. But Lena was already mentally storyboarding, her hands framing imaginary shots. It wouldn't be about you specifically, more about the community response to increased gang presence. You'd be anonymous. Lena, no, it's too dangerous. Fine, Lena conceded, but Ayana recognized the look on her friend's face. The subject wasn't closed. That afternoon, Ayana took a shortcut through an alley on her way to pick up groceries for dinner. She was halfway through when a figure stepped out from behind a dumpster, blocking her path. It was Tito, the twitchy one from the gas station. He stood with his legs apart, fists clenched at his sides, a sneer distorting his features. Well, look who it is, he said, his voice grating. The girl with the attitude. Ayana stopped, maintaining several feet of distance between them. She said nothing, her face impassive. Tito spat on the ground near her shoes. This ain't over. Not by a long shot. Ayana met his gaze, her eyes calm but intense. She could feel her heart rate increasing, adrenaline beginning to flow, but her training kept her breathing steady. She took a step forward, then another, walking directly toward him. For a moment, uncertainty flickered across Tito's face. Then Ayana was past him, continuing down the alley without looking back. You hear me? This ain't over, he called after her, but she could hear the slight waver in his voice. Later that night in the warehouse, Razor paced back and forth while the others watched. She just walked past you? He demanded, glaring at Tito. Again? Tito shifted uncomfortably. She didn't say nothing, just stared me down and kept walking. It was weird, man, like she wasn't even scared. Because we haven't given her a reason to be scared yet, Razor snapped. These little mind games aren't working. We need something bigger, something public. What are you thinking? Slick asked, his fingers tapping away at his phone. We humiliate her, in front of everyone, make an example of her. Nails looked up from filing her purple acrylics. The school has that talent show coming up next Friday. Lots of kids, parents, too. We could catch her after when everyone's leaving. Razor nodded slowly, a cruel smile spreading across his face. Perfect. Start planning. I want this to hurt. In her garage that night, Ayana trained with a focused intensity that left her drenched in sweat. She moved through combinations of punches, kicks, and blocks, pushing herself harder than usual. The physical exertion helped clear her mind, helped process the anxiety she wouldn't admit to anyone else. From the doorway, James Carter watched silently. He recognized the signs, the tension in her shoulders, the slightly too aggressive strikes. Something was wrong. He'd seen it for days now, but had been giving her space to work through it herself. Finally, as Ayanna paused to catch her breath, he stepped into the garage. Without a word, he walked to the small box on the shelf and removed his old army patch, 75th Ranger Regiment. He held it out to her. "You don't need it," he said quietly. "But I think you're about to show them what discipline looks like." Ayanna looked at the patch, then at her father. She didn't ask how he knew. She didn't need to. "I can handle it, Dad." "I know you can. That's not what worries me." He placed the patch in her hand, closing her fingers around it. "It's what happens after." Ayanna nodded, understanding. Violence, even in self-defense, changed a person. Her father knew that better than most. "I'll be careful," she promised. James smiled sadly. "No, you'll be yourself. And that's what scares them. You're not seriously considering going to this thing, are you?" Malik's voice cracked with concern as he stared at the tattered flyer in Ayanna's hand. The three friends huddled at their usual lunch table, heads bent together in quiet conference. The flyer advertised a block party behind the old Phillips warehouse, a decaying industrial building at the edge of their neighborhood that had been abandoned years ago. Friday night, 9 p.m., it read in jagged, spray-painted lettering. Music, drinks, no cops. "It's obviously a trap," Lena added, uncharacteristically aligned with Malik's caution. "They're practically sending you an engraved invitation to get jumped." Ayanna studied the paper, her expression unreadable. "That's exactly what it is," she agreed. "And that's exactly why I need to go." "Have you lost your mind?" Malik hissed, pushing his glasses up nervously. "These aren't high school bullies, Ayanna. These are grown men with criminal records, the kind of people who carry weapons. And they're not going to stop," Ayanna replied, her voice quiet but firm. "The tire slashing, the rumors, the threats. It's escalating. If I don't face this now on my terms, they'll just keep coming. Maybe at school, maybe at the dojo, maybe somewhere my dad could get caught in the crossfire." Lena's filmmaker brain was already spinning despite her concern. "If you're really doing this, you're not going alone. We're coming with you." "Absolutely not." Ayanna's tone left no room for argument. "This is between me and them." "At least tell your dad," Malik pleaded. Ayanna folded the flyer carefully and tucked it into her backpack. "I'll handle it. Don't worry." But worry they did. Throughout the day, Lena and Malik exchanged glances loaded with concern. During last period, Malik slipped Ayanna a small canister. "Pepper spray," he whispered. "Just in case." After school, Ayanna headed home, her mind busy with preparation. Her father was working a double shift tonight, which simplified things. No need to lie about where she was going. She'd leave a note saying she was at the dojo with Coach Takashi, not a complete lie as she planned to stop there first. In her room, she laid out her clothes carefully. Dark jeans, a fitted black hoodie, and her most flexible sneakers. Underneath, she would wear the lightweight compression gear she used for tournament sparring, thin but protective, allowing full range of movement without restricting her. At 6, she headed to the dojo. Coach Takashi was finishing up a children's class when she arrived. He acknowledged her with a slight nod as she bowed at the entrance and took a seat on the bench to wait. After the last child had been picked up, Takashi approached her, toweling sweat from his forehead. "You are not dressed for training," he observed. "I need to talk to you about something," Ayanna said. For the next 20 minutes, she outlined the situation and her plan. Takashi listened without interruption, his weathered face revealing nothing. "You understand this is what they want," he said finally. "To isolate you. To create a scenario where they control the environment." "Yes. And still you choose to go." "I do." Takashi studied her for a long moment. "There is a fine line between courage and foolishness, Ayanna. The warrior who seeks battle unnecessarily may find themselves in a war they cannot win." "I'm not seeking battle," she replied. "It's already found me. I'm just choosing the battleground." Takashi sighed, then turned and walked to the small office at the back of the dojo. He returned with a small black case, which he placed in her hands. Smoke bombs, he explained. Non-toxic, but they create enough confusion to change the dynamic of a confrontation. Use them wisely. Ayana looked up at her mentor, surprised. You're not going to try to stop me? A ghost of a smile crossed Takashi's face. Would it work if I did? By 8:30, Ayana was making her way toward the warehouse, the night air cool against her face. The neighborhood grew progressively more desolate as she walked. Boarded-up storefronts, vacant lots, scattered trash. She kept to the shadows, alert. To every sound and movement, 2 blocks from the warehouse, her phone buzzed. A text from Malik. We're in position. NW corner of the building. Be careful. Despite her instructions, her friends had come anyway. Ayana felt a mix of frustration and gratitude as she texted back, Stay hidden. Don't intervene unless absolutely necessary. From a distance, she could already hear the thumping bass of music. Colored lights flashed from behind the warehouse, and the murmur of voices carried on the night air. As she drew closer, she could make out maybe 30 people milling around. Some from her school, others she didn't recognize. A makeshift DJ booth had been set up, surrounded by coolers presumably filled with alcohol. The scene was lit by portable floodlights and the occasional flare of a lighter. Ayana pulled her hood up and moved along the perimeter, assessing. She spotted Tito near the DJ booth, scanning the crowd. Slick was by the entrance, checking people as they arrived. And there, holding court in the center of it all, was Razor, a beer in one hand, the other gesturing as he spoke to an attentive audience of younger guys clearly eager for his approval. No sign of nails, which made Ayana uneasy. The woman was the wild card in this equation. For nearly 20 minutes, Ayana circled the gathering, staying just out of sight. She watched the patterns of movement, noted the exits, identified potential obstacles. Then, having seen enough, she stepped into the light. The effect was immediate. A ripple of recognition spread through the crowd, conversations faltering, heads turning. Slick, noticing the shift in energy, looked up and spotted her. He nudged Razor, who turned slowly. A smile spread across Razor's face, the kind of smile a predator might give upon cornering its prey. He raised his hand and the DJ cut the music. The sudden silence fell heavy across the yard. Well, 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 Razor announced, his voice carrying in the quiet. Look who decided to join the party. Ayana stood her ground as Razor approached, Tito and Slick falling in behind him. The crowd parted to create a circle around them, eager spectators to the drama unfolding. Thought you could embarrass us? Razor asked, stopping a few feet from her. His breath smelled of beer and cigarettes. Thought you could just walk away? Ayana said nothing, her eyes never leaving his face. Nothing to say now? Razor taunted. No smart comments? No attitude? From the corner of her eye, Ayana saw Tito shifting position, moving to her right. Slick had his phone out, recording, and there was Nails, emerging from the shadows to complete the circle. Let me explain how this is going to work, Razor continued, enjoying his audience. You're going to apologize, on camera, for disrespecting me and my crew. Then you're going to get down on your knees and beg for forgiveness. And if I'm feeling generous, maybe we'll let you walk out of here with just a few bruises instead of broken bones. Murmurs rippled through the watching crowd. Some looked uncomfortable, others excited by the prospect of violence. No one moved. To intervene, and if I don't? Ayana asked, her voice calm and clear in the silence. Razor's smile widened. Then we make an example of you. He nodded to Tito, who lunged forward without warning, swinging a meaty fist directly at Ayana's face. The punch never landed. In one fluid movement, Ayana sidestepped, caught Tito's extended arm, and used his momentum to flip him over her hip. He hit the ground with a heavy thud, the impact knocking the wind from his lungs. A collective gasp rose from the onlookers. For a split second, the scene froze. Tito gasping on the ground, Razor's smile faltering, Ayana balanced and ready. Then chaos erupted. Slick rushed her from behind, attempting to grab her in a bear hug. Ayana dropped her weight, breaking his grip, then spun with a sweeping leg kick that took his feet out from under him. As he fell, she rose, narrowly avoiding a wild swing from Nails, who had produced a set of brass knuckles from her jacket pocket. "Get her!" Razor shouted, his voice cracking with rage. He reached behind his back and pulled out a switchblade, the blade snapping open with a metallic click. Ayanna moved like water, fluid, relentless, finding the path of least resistance. Every strike from her attackers met empty air as she dodged and weaved. When she counterattacked, her movements were precise and controlled, using their own force against them. Tito, back on his feet, charged like a bull. Ayanna sidestepped at the last moment, adding a push that sent him crashing through a stack of empty barrels. The crash echoed across the yard, punctuated by gasps and scattered applause from the increasingly enthusiastic audience. "Holy shit," someone in the crowd whispered. "She's destroying them." Slick, seeing the tide turning, attempted to retreat. He backed away, still filming, only to collide with something solid. He turned to find Malik and Lena blocking his path, their faces set with determination. "Going somewhere?" Lena asked, her own phone raised and recording. Before Slick could respond, Malik snatched the phone from his hand. "I think we'll be taking this," he said, pocketing it and shoving Slick back toward the center of the action. Nails circled Ayanna warily, brass knuckles glinting in the floodlights. "You think you're special?" she hissed. "You're just a stupid kid who doesn't know when to stay down." She feinted left, then struck right, aiming for Ayanna's ribs. Ayanna blocked with her forearm, wincing at the impact of metal against bone, then countered with a palm strike to Nails' sternum that sent her staggering backward. Throughout it all, Ayanna maintained perfect control. She didn't fight to hurt. She fought to neutralize. Each movement was calculated, efficient, just enough, forced to disable without causing serious injury. Razor watched his crew faltering with growing fury. The girl wasn't just defending herself, she was making them look pathetic. With a snarl, he lunged forward, knife extended. The blade slashed through the air inches from Ayanna's face as she leaned back. She retreated several steps, creating distance, her eyes locked on the weapon. This changed things. "Not so tough now, are you?" Razor taunted, advancing slowly. "Let's see those karate moves against this." He slashed again, driving her back toward the wall of the warehouse. The crowd scrambled to get out of the way, the mood shifting from excitement to fear as the glint of steel raised the stakes. Ayanna felt her back press against the rough brick of the building. Razor grinned, thinking he had her cornered. He lunged. Again, the knife aimed at her abdomen. In that moment, a bright flash erupted at Razor's feet, followed by billowing white smoke that quickly engulfed them both. Coughing and cursing, Razor staggered backward, temporarily blinded. Takashi's smoke bomb had given Ayanna the opening she needed. She moved through the cloud like a ghost, invisible until the moment her foot connected with Razor's wrist in a perfect, disarming kick. The knife clattered to the ground and skidded away into the darkness. Before Razor could recover, Ayanna delivered a series of rapid strikes, palm heel to the solar plexus, elbow to the ribs, open hand to the throat. None were full force, but each found its target with surgical precision. Razor folded, gasping for air, and dropped to his knees. As the smoke cleared, the scene revealed itself to the stunned onlookers. Tito sprawled among broken barrels, Nails, sitting dazed against a stack of pallets, Slick pinned between Malik and Lena, and Razor, the fearsome gang leader, on his knees, struggling to breathe. Ayanna stood in the center, barely winded, not a hair out of place. "You don't get to write my story," she said, her voice carrying in the silence. "And you don't get to decide my worth." In the distance, sirens wailed. Someone in the crowd had called the police. The spectators began to scatter, rushing for exits, jumping fences, desperate to avoid the approaching authorities. Razor, hearing the sirens, struggled to his feet. "This isn't over," he wheezed, backing away. Not by a long shot. Ayanna watched him retreat into the shadows, followed by his limping lieutenants. She made no move to pursue. The battle was won, for tonight at least. Lena rushed to her side, phone still recording. "That was amazing. I got everything. This is going to blow up online." "Did you get hurt?" Malik asked, his eyes scanning her for injuries. Ayanna shook, her head, the adrenaline beginning to ebb, leaving her shaky but clear-headed. "We need to go. Now." As they slipped away into the night, Lena was already uploading the footage. By morning, the video would have over 1 million views, with the caption, "Girl destroys whole gang without breaking a sweat." Ayana's face was mostly hidden by her hood, but the legend was born. James Carter sat at the kitchen table, his coffee untouched, his eyes fixed on the tablet before him. The video played for the third time, a dark, chaotic sequence showing a hooded figure systematically dismantling 4 attackers. Though the face was obscured, he would recognize his daughter's movements anywhere. He paused the video, ran a hand over his face, and checked the time. 6:15 a.m. Ayana would be up soon, preparing for school as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't been in mortal danger just hours ago. The sound of a door opening drew his attention. Ayana appeared in the hallway, freezing when she saw him sitting there. For a long moment, neither spoke. "Dad, she began. "Sit down," he said, his voice carefully controlled. Ayana sat across from him, her posture straight, her eyes steady. James studied her face, looking for cuts, bruises, any sign of what she'd been through. There was only a small scrape on her forearm. "When were you going to tell me?" he asked. "Today," she answered honestly. "After school." James nodded slowly, then turned the tablet toward her. "This is all over the internet. Nearly 2 million views already." Ayana's eyes widened slightly. "I didn't know Lena would upload it so fast." "That's not the point, Ayana." James's composure cracked, his voice rising. "You could have been killed. That man had a knife." "I knew what I was doing," she replied, her tone even. "I've been training for this my whole life. Training to fight gangs? To take on armed criminals? Is that what you think I've been preparing?" "You for all these years?" Ayana met his gaze unflinchingly. "You taught me to stand up for myself, to be strong, to face problems head on." "Not like this," James said, shaking his head. "Not by putting yourself in harm's way deliberately." "They weren't going to stop, Dad. The harassment was escalating. They slashed my tire, threatened me at school, spread rumors. What was I supposed to do? Wait until they caught me alone somewhere? Or came here?" James stared at his daughter, seeing for the first time not just the child he'd raised, but the woman she was becoming. Fierce, principled, uncompromising. So much like her mother it made his chest ache. "You should have come to me," he said finally, his anger deflating. "We could have handled this together." "Would you have let me face them?" Ayana asked. James was silent, knowing the answer. "That's why I didn't tell you," she said softly. "Some fights you have to face yourself." The fight drained out of James completely. He reached across the table and took her hand, examining the scraped knuckles with a mixture of concern and pride. "You shouldn't have had to do this," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "But damn, you did it right." Tears welled in Ayana's eyes, not from pain or fear, but from the relief of her father's understanding. James pulled her into a fierce hug, holding her with the desperation of a parent who had almost lost everything. "No more secret fights," he whispered against her hair. "Promise me." Ayana nodded against his shoulder. "Promise." At school, the atmosphere had changed dramatically. News of the warehouse confrontation had spread like wildfire, transforming Ayana overnight from ordinary student to near mythical figure. People stared as she walked the hallways, conversations halting as she passed, resuming in excited whispers in her wake. "There she is. That's her, the one from the video. Did you see how she took down that big guy?" Lena was in her element, basking in the reflected glory as the videographer who had captured the now viral moment. Malik remained quieter, concerned about potential repercussions. "The video has over 3 million views now," Lena announced, joining. "Ayana and Malik at lunch, and I got an email from Youth Empowerment Coalition. They want to feature it in their anti-violence campaign." "Great," Ayana replied without enthusiasm. "Just what I need, more attention." "This is serious," Malik warned, lowering his voice. "Those guys are probably furious. They got humiliated in front of everyone. You think they're just going to let that go? They've been identified in the comments, Lena added. Someone recognized Razor as Eric Wilson. Apparently he's got a record: assault, drug dealing, weapons charges. Ayanna pushed her food around her plate, appetite gone. Did anyone mention police involvement? A few people said cops showed up, but most of the gang got away, Malik said. You need to be careful, Ayanna. Really careful. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed with a message from the school office. Please report to Principal Thornton's office immediately. Principal Thornton was waiting when she arrived, his normally jovial face set in serious lines. Miss Carter, please sit down. Ayanna took the offered seat, back straight, hands folded in her lap. I've received some concerning information, Thornton began, adjusting his tie nervously. About an incident involving you and several known gang members. Yes, sir. Would you care to explain what happened? Ayanna gave him the abbreviated version, leaving out her deliberate decision to attend the party. Thornton listened with growing alarm. This is extremely serious, he said when she finished. These individuals have violent criminal histories. The police have informed me that there may be a risk of retaliation. I understand. Given the circumstances, we believe it would be in your best interest to switch to our online learning program for the remainder of the semester. You could complete your coursework from home where you'd be safe. Ayanna's jaw tightened. No. Thornton blinked, taken aback. Excuse me? I said no. I won't be driven out of school because of their threats. That's exactly what they want. To control me through fear. Miss Carter, this isn't about fear, it's about your safety. My safety is my responsibility, Ayanna replied firmly, and I refuse to hide. After school, Ayanna was met by a police officer who introduced himself as Detective Morris. He escorted her to a nearby patrol car where his partner waited. We'd like to ask you some questions about what happened last night, Morris explained as they drove to the station. We've been building a case against Eric Wilson's gang for months, and this incident could provide valuable evidence. At the station, Ayanna was led to a small interview room. For the next hour, she answered questions, identified photos, and provided details about the harassment leading up to the warehouse confrontation. The detectives were particularly interested in the knife Razor had pulled. Unfortunately, Detective Morris said, reviewing his notes, while the video clearly shows Wilson attacking you with a knife, his face is partially obscured by the smoke. His lawyer could argue it's not definitive identification. So he gets away with it? Ayanna asked, frustration evident in her voice. For now, possibly, but this adds to our case file. And we've arrested 2 of his associates on existing warrants. Morris leaned forward, his expression serious. Miss Carter, I need you to understand something. Men like Wilson don't take humiliation well. They can't afford to lose face, especially publicly. You need to be extremely vigilant. Ayanna nodded, the weight of the situation settling more firmly on her shoulders. Later that evening, she visited the dojo. Coach Takashi was alone, methodically cleaning the training mats. I wasn't sure you'd come today, he said without looking up. I wanted to thank you, Ayanna replied, for the smoke bombs. They may have saved my life. Takashi straightened, studying her face. You fought well from what I hear. Controlled, precise. I did what I had to do. And now? What will you do now? Ayanna hesitated. I don't know. Everyone's telling me to hide, to be careful, but that feels like letting them win. Takashi set aside his cleaning cloth and walked to the center of the mat. He gestured for Ayanna to join him. When she did, he surprised her by bowing deeply. The bow, of respect given to a senior practitioner, not a student. I have been teaching for 40 years, he said as he straightened. In that time, I have trained many strong fighters, but true warriors are rare. I'm not a warrior, Ayanna protested. I just defended myself. A warrior is not defined by fighting, but by purpose. By the willingness to stand firm in the face of fear. Takashi placed a hand on her shoulder. I would be honored if you would begin assisting me with the advanced class. The students could learn much from your example. Ayanna felt a swell of emotion at the unexpected offer. Thank you, Sensei. As she walked home in the gathering dusk, Ayana's phone pinged with a message from Malik. Check your email now. Urgent. She opened her email to find a series of screenshots Malik had sent. Anonymous messages, sent to his gaming accounts, all with the same theme. Back off. Stop helping her. Or else. Ayana's blood ran cold. They were targeting her friends now. Across town, in a dingy apartment that served as a temporary hideout, Razor paced like a caged animal. His face was bruised, his pride more so. The viral video had made him a laughingstock in circles where fear was currency. His phone hadn't stopped buzzing with messages, some mocking, others from higher-ups demanding explanations. We need. To lie low, Slick advised, nursing a sprained wrist. The heat's too much right now. Cops are looking for you specifically. Lie low, Razor spat, hurling a beer bottle against the wall. While that bitch becomes some kind of internet hero, while everyone laughs at us? It's just some stupid video, Nails said from the couch, her own face sporting a magnificent black eye. It'll blow over. It's not about the video, Razor shouted. It's about respect, about consequences. No one humiliates me and walks away clean. No one. So what's the plan? Tito asked, his eagerness for violence undimmed despite his injuries. Razor stopped pacing, a cold smile spreading across his face. We hit her where it hurts. Not just her, everyone around her. Her friends, her precious dojo, her daddy. We take everything, piece by piece. That's obsession, not justice, Nails observed, her voice flat. You're going to get us all locked up. Razor turned on her, eyes burning with a dangerous light. You with me or not? Nails held his gaze for a long moment before looking away. Whatever. Just don't expect me to take another beating from Karate Kid. Outside the dojo the next morning, Coach Takashi stood in stunned silence. The front windows had been smashed, glass littering the sidewalk. Inside, the destruction was methodical. Equipment slashed, mirrors shattered, training dummies dismembered. Spray painted across the back wall in blood-red letters, Round 2 is coming. When Ayana arrived minutes later, summoned by Takashi's terse text, she surveyed the damage with a face carved from stone. This was no longer about her pride or safety. This was war, and innocent people were caught in the crossfire. I'm sorry, she said quietly to Takashi. This is my fault. The old sensei shook his head, his eyes on the ruined dojo. No. This is the work of weak men who fear strong women. The fault is theirs alone. Ayana knelt to pick up a torn black belt. From the floor, one that had belonged to a teenage student who had worked for years to earn it. They fear you now, Takashi continued, watching her. That's why they're desperate. Ayana nodded slowly, understanding dawning in her eyes. Fear. That was the key. Razor didn't just want revenge. He needed to reassert his power, to make people fear him again, and she had taken that power away. As police officers arrived to document the vandalism, Ayana stepped outside, pulling out her phone. She called, her father first, warning him to be extra vigilant at work and home. Then Lena and Malik, confirming they were safe, but urging caution. Finally, she texted Coach Takashi, "This ends now. I have a plan." The morning sun filtered through the shattered windows of the dojo, casting fractured light across the destruction. Ayana stood in the center of what had once been a sanctuary, her fingers trailing over the slashed punching bags, their stuffing spilling out like viscera. The floorboards had been gouged with what must have been crowbars or axes, leaving splintered wood in their wake. Coach Takashi moved methodically through the space, cataloging the damage for insurance purposes, his face impassive. But Ayana knew her mentor well enough to see the tension in his shoulders, the careful control in his movements that masked a deep, burning anger. They were thorough, Takashi said finally, setting down his clipboard. Professional. This isn't random vandalism, Ayana agreed. It's a message, Takashi nodded. They fear you now. That's why they're desperate. A small group of students had gathered outside, held back by police tape. Among them were some of the younger girls Ayana taught on weekends, their faces pressed against the glass, eyes wide with confusion and dismay. One of them spotted Ayana and waved tentatively. Ayana waved back, forcing a reassuring smile. These children trusted her, looked up to her, and now they were witnessing the consequences of violence entering their safe space. "We'll rebuild," Takashi said, following her gaze to the children. Stronger than before. Ayana's phone buzzed. A text from Malik. "Need to talk. Not over phone. My place ASAP." The urgency in his message set off alarm bells. "I have to go," she told Takashi. "Will you be okay here?" "Go," he nodded. "And Ayana, watch your back." 20 minutes later, she arrived at Malik's house, immediately noticing the shattered windows on the first floor. The garage door had been spray-painted with a single word: snitch. Malik's mother answered the door, her normally warm face tight with worry. "He's upstairs," she said. "The police just left." Ayana found Malik in his bedroom, surrounded by computer equipment. His eyes were bloodshot from lack of sleep, his movements jittery. "What happened?" she demanded. "They came last night," he explained, voice low. "Around 3 a.m., broke the windows, tagged the garage. My dad heard the noise and turned on the floodlights, which scared them off. Are you hurt?" "No, but—" He swiveled his monitor toward her. On the screen were dozens of messages, all sent to his various online accounts. Each contained some variation of the same threat. "Stop helping her. Back off. We know where you live." "My parents want to send me to my aunt's in Portland until this blows over," Malik continued. "They're scared, Ayana, and honestly, so am I." Ayana felt sick. First the dojo, now Malik's home. Where would they strike next? Lena's, her father's workplace. The community center where she taught self-defense? "You should go," she said quietly. "Get somewhere safe." "And leave you to handle this alone? No way. This isn't your fight, Malik." "It became my fight when they targeted my family," he insisted, a rare flash of anger crossing his face. "Besides, I've been working on something." He pulled up another window on his computer, showing what appeared to be a map of the neighborhood with several red dots blinking at different locations. "What am I looking at?" Ayana asked. "I've been tracking their movements," Malik explained, his confidence returning as he slipped into tech speak. "After the warehouse, I planted a small tracker on Slick's jacket when I took his phone. It's been pinging locations for the past 36 hours. Ayana stared at him in disbelief. "You bugged a gang member?" "Technically, I just tracked his jacket," Malik said with a hint of pride. "Look at the pattern. They're operating in spirals, testing boundaries, circling closer to specific targets." Ayana studied the map, recognizing the methodology. It wasn't random at all. They were systematically mapping out the lives of everyone connected to her, identifying vulnerabilities. "They're planning something bigger," she murmured. Before Malik could respond, his phone chimed with a text. His face paled as he read it. "What is it?" Ayana asked. "It's from Lena. Someone hacked her accounts and deleted all her footage. The warehouse fight, the documentary interviews, everything. They sent her a video message. 'Delete us. We delete you.'" The walls seemed to close in around Ayana. This was escalating faster than she'd anticipated. Not just petty vandalism, but coordinated digital attacks, property destruction, explicit threats. "I need to think," she said, moving toward the window. Outside, the neighborhood looked deceptively peaceful. Children playing in yards, people walking dogs, ordinary life continuing while her world spiraled into chaos. A motorcycle rumbled down the street, slowing as it passed Malik's house. The rider wore a purple helmet that matched her hair. "Nails," Ayana whispered, ducking instinctively. But instead of continuing past, the motorcycle pulled into the driveway. Nails cut the engine, removed her helmet, and looked directly at the window where Ayana stood. "Stay here," Ayana told Malik, heading for the stairs. "Are you crazy? She's one of them, which is exactly why I need to talk to her." Outside, Nails leaned against her bike, arms crossed defensively. Up close, the bruising from their fight was vivid against her pale skin, a swollen cheekbone, split lip, darkened eye socket. Nice work, she said, gesturing to her face. You've got good hands. What do you want? Ayanna asked, maintaining a safe distance. To warn you, Nails said, glancing around nervously. Razor's lost it. This isn't about gang stuff anymore. It's personal. He's obsessed. Why should I believe you? Because I'm not interested in going to prison for his revenge fantasy, Nails replied flatly. He's planning something twisted. You humiliated him in front of everyone. Now he wants to humiliate you for real. What does that mean? Nails hesitated, then lowered her voice. There's a community event next weekend, right? The talent show at the rec center? Ayanna nodded, her stomach clenching. He's planning to grab you there. Live stream it. Turn your legend into a warning. Nails pulled a cigarette from her pocket and lit it with shaking hands. I'm done with this shit. I signed up for a crew, not a cult. Razor's going to get us all locked up or killed. Why are you telling me this? Nails took a long drag, blew the smoke sideways away from Ayanna. Maybe I don't like seeing girls get hurt. Maybe I'm covering my ass. Does it matter? Before Ayanna could press further, Nails was back on her motorcycle, engine roaring to life. Watch yourself, she called over the noise. And we never had this conversation. As the motorcycle disappeared around the corner, Malik emerged from the house, his expression incredulous. Did she just help you? I think so, Ayanna replied, already pulling out her phone. I need to call my dad. James Carter took the news of Razor's plan with military calm, asking precise questions about timing, locations, potential escape routes. Only the tightening of his jaw betrayed his true feelings. I'm calling in some favors, he said once Ayanna had explained everything. I've got friends from my unit who owe me. We'll have eyes on every entrance of that community center. Dad, I don't want to cancel the talent show. The kids have been practicing for months. We're not canceling anything, James assured her. We're setting a trap of our own. Over the next 5 days, preparations took shape. James contacted former Rangers who now worked in private security. Malik set up a network of hidden cameras around the community center, linking them to a secure server that couldn't be hacked or deleted. Lena, despite losing her footage, began training volunteers from the film club to position themselves at strategic points with their cameras. Coach Takashi contributed as well, teaching Ayanna and her friends specific techniques for urban combat, how to fight in confined spaces, how to use environmental features to their advantage, how to escape zip ties and duct tape. On the evening, before the event, Ayanna walked alone into the empty community center. The space had been transformed for tomorrow's show, a stage with proper lighting, rows of folding chairs, a sound system borrowed from the high school. Soon, it would be filled with families, performers, community members, and somewhere among them, Razor and his crew, waiting to strike. Ayanna moved to the center of the room and closed her eyes. Her breathing slowed as she began a series of kata, the formalized movements that were the backbone of her training. Each position flowed into the next with precision and control, a moving meditation that cleared her mind and focused her energy. From the back of the room, James Carter watched his daughter with a mixture of pride and concern. He held an old tactical flashlight in his hands, methodically checking its function, a habit from his military days. They picked the wrong girl, he said softly, but his words carried in the empty space. Ayanna completed her kata and turned to her father, a newfound resolve in her eyes. Yes, she agreed. They did. The community center buzzed with excitement as the annual talent show got underway. The parking lot was full, the auditorium packed with parents, siblings, friends, and neighbors. On stage, a group of elementary school children performed a surprisingly coordinated dance routine to a popular song, drawing enthusiastic applause. Ayanna sat with her father in the middle row, her posture relaxed, but her senses hyper-alert. James wore civilian clothes, but the earpiece partially hidden by his collar betrayed his readiness. Throughout the audience, other former military men were similarly positioned. Ordinary-looking individuals with extraordinary training, their eyes constantly scanning. Backstage, Lena coordinated her film club volunteers, each equipped with a camera and assigned a specific zone to monitor. Malik had set up in a small office off the main corridor, surrounded by laptops, showing feeds from various security cameras he'd installed. As the third act began, a teenage boy performing an impressive card trick routine, Ayana's phone vibrated in her pocket. A text from an unknown number, 3 Minineer razors coming in from the South Alley. Nails had come through with her promised warning. Ayana caught her father's eye and gave a subtle nod. He touched his earpiece, murmuring instructions to his team. With practiced casualness, Ayana stood and made her way toward the exit, as if heading to the restroom. Once in the hallway, she moved swiftly toward the south entrance, texting Malik as she went. "They're here, South Alley. Start recording." On it came the immediate reply. "Drone is airborne. I see 3 figures approaching, Razor, Tito, and someone I don't recognize. They're dressed in dark clothes. Razor's carrying something, looks like a duffel bag." Ayana slipped through a side door into the warm evening air. The South Alley ran behind the community center, connecting to the main parking lot. It was dimly lit and lined with dumpsters, perfect for an ambush. Instead of hiding, Ayana deliberately made herself visible, then ducked around the corner. She dropped her hair tie on the ground, scuffed a clear footprint in a patch of dirt, and placed her phone on a window ledge, screen illuminated with a half-written text. "I'm at the south entrance. Where are why?" The bait was set. From her new position, behind an air conditioning unit, Ayana watched as 3 figures appeared at the mouth of the alley. Razor led the way, moving with predatory confidence, a duffel bag slung over his shoulder. Tito followed, nervously fingering something in his pocket. The third man was unfamiliar, taller than the others, with a spiderweb tattoo visible on his neck, even in the dim light. Razor spotted the phone first, a smile spreading across his face as he picked it up. "She wants a stage," he said to the others, his voice carrying in the quiet alley. Exactly as Ayana had predicted. His ego wouldn't allow him to question such convenient evidence. He was too eager for his moment of triumph. Razor gestured for the others to spread out and search the alley while he continued toward the parking lot. Ayana waited until he was well separated from his backup before stepping into view, positioning herself between Razor and the lot. "Looking for me?" she asked calmly. Razor froze, then recovered with a sneer. "Well, well, saving us the trouble of dragging you out?" "Let's finish this," Ayana replied. "Just you and me. No weapons, no backup." A laugh escaped Razor's throat, harsh and disbelieving. "You think this is some kind of fair fight? Some tournament with rules?" He dropped the duffel bag and unzipped it, revealing what looked like rope, duct tape, and a small camera setup. "This isn't about fighting. This is about making an example." Before he could reach into the bag, a spotlight suddenly illuminated the alley, blinding in its intensity. Lena's voice crackled through a megaphone. "You're live, asshole!" Razor squinted against the light, momentarily disoriented. From various positions around the alley, camera lenses glinted, Lena's film crew, capturing everything, rage contorted, Razor's features as he realized the trap. With a roar, he lunged at Ayana, abandoning whatever plan he'd had in favor of raw violence. Ayana sidestepped his initial rush, using his momentum to send him stumbling past her. He recovered quickly, turning to face her with fists raised. "You think you're special?" he snarled. "You're nothing. A nobody who got lucky once." "No," Ayana corrected, settling into a fighting stance. "I'm someone who trained for 12 years, while you were building your reputation on intimidating people weaker than you." The first exchange was swift, Razor throwing heavy punches that Ayana blocked or evaded with practiced efficiency. He fought with the unstructured brutality of someone used to overwhelming opponents with strength and aggression. Ayana fought with discipline and technique, each movement deliberate and controlled. Meanwhile, Tito had spotted the cameras and rushed toward one of Lena's volunteers. Before he could reach the terrified student, Malik's voice rang out from behind. "A dumpster. I wouldn't do that if I were you." Tito turned to find Malik pointing not a weapon but a phone at him. "We're streaming this to the police in real time. They're already on their way." Back in the center of the alley, the fight intensified. Razor, realizing he was being outmaneuvered, pulled a chain from his pocket and swung it in a vicious arc toward Ayana's head. She ducked beneath it, closing the distance between them, and delivered a precise strike to his solar plexus that left him gasping. Enraged and desperate, Razor reached into his jacket and produced what Ayana had feared, a taser. The weapon crackled with electricity as he jabbed it toward her. "Still think you're special?" he taunted. This time, Ayanna wasn't quite fast enough. The taser caught her arm, sending a jolt of electricity through her body. She staggered, momentarily paralyzed by the shock, and Razor pressed his advantage, moving in to finish what he'd started. But before he could reach her, a small object arced through the air, landing at his feet. With a pop and a hiss, one of Takashi's smoke bombs exploded, filling the space between them with thick white vapor. Coach Takashi's voice called from somewhere in the smoke. "Ayanna, focus!" The momentary distraction gave Ayanna precious seconds to recover. Though her arm still tingled painfully, she centered herself, remembering her training. In the disorienting smoke, she had the advantage. Years of practicing kata with her eyes closed had honed her spatial awareness to near perfection. Razor coughed and cursed, swinging blindly with the taser. "Where are you?" he shouted. "Fight! Me like a man! I'm fighting you like a warrior!" Ayanna's voice replied from the smoke, impossible to pinpoint. "There's a difference." She struck from his blind spot, a precise kick to his wrist that sent the taser flying from his grip. Before he could react, she followed with a combination of strikes that drove him backward, out of the smoke cloud, and into the illuminated portion of the alley. By now, a crowd had gathered, audience members from the talent show, drawn by the commotion. Among them were parents, teachers, neighborhood residents, all witnesses to Razor's humiliation. Desperate and cornered, Razor reached into his boot and pulled out a small knife. "Enough games," he growled, slashing wildly. Ayanna maintained, her distance evaluating options. The knife changed things. One wrong move could be fatal. From the edge of the crowd, James Carter moved forward, ready to intervene. But Ayanna caught his eye and gave a subtle shake of her head. This was her fight to finish. Razor lunged, knife extended. Instead of retreating, Ayanna stepped into his attack, deflecting his knife arm with a precise block while simultaneously sweeping his legs. As he fell, she captured his wrist in a joint lock that forced his fingers open. The knife clattered to the pavement. In one fluid motion, Ayanna transitioned from the wrist lock to a throw that flipped Razor onto his back with bone-jarring force. Before he could recover, she pinned him, one knee on his chest, the other immobilizing. His arm in a painful hold, Razor struggled furiously, but the position was inescapable without risking a broken arm. Slowly, the fight drained out of him as he realized the depth of his defeat. Ayanna leaned close, her voice low but intense. "You don't get to write my ending. You don't get to decide who I am or what I'm worth. This ends now." In the distance, sirens wailed, the police finally arriving. The crowd parted to let the patrol cars through, their flashing lights painting the scene in alternating red and blue. Officers rushed forward, handcuffs at the ready. As they secured Razor, one of them nodded respectfully to Ayanna. "You okay, miss?" She stepped back, suddenly aware of the throbbing in her arm where the taser had struck, the adrenaline beginning to ebb from her system. "I'm fine," she managed. James was at her side instantly, his arm around her shoulders. "It's over," he said softly. "You did it." Lena pushed through the crowd, camera still rolling, her face alight with excitement. "Did you see that? Please tell me we got all of that. This is going to be epic." Malik joined them, grinning despite his obvious exhaustion. "Every second from multiple angles. Even got drone footage of him pulling the knife." As the police led Razor toward a patrol car, he twisted in their grip to glare at Ayanna one last time. "This isn't over," he shouted. "You hear me? This isn't over." Ayanna watched him being loaded into the car, her expression calm. "Yes," she said quietly. "It is." The crowd that had gathered began to disperse, many stopping to pat Ayanna's shoulder or offer words of support. Parents hugged their children closer, relieved that the danger had passed. Inside, the talent show continued, the youngest performers blissfully unaware of the drama that had unfolded outside. Coach Takashi approached, seemingly materializing from the dissipating smoke. He bowed formally to Ayanna, who returned the gesture. Despite her exhaustion, "You fought with honor," he said simply, "with control and purpose. I had good teachers, she replied, including her father in her glance. As the sirens faded into the distance, Ayanna stood between her father and her mentor, surrounded by friends, in a community that had witnessed her strength. The battle was won, but she knew the war for her neighborhood's safety was just beginning, and she was ready. 3 weeks after the confrontation at the community center, Ayanna sat in an uncomfortable plastic chair outside an interview room at the police station. Through the window in the door, she could see Detective Morris speaking with the district attorney, their expressions serious as they reviewed documents spread across the table. It was her third visit to the station since Razor's arrest. Each time, more questions, more statements, more forms to sign. The legal machinery moved slowly, grinding away at the truth until it became something that could fit into the rigid framework of law. The door opened, and Detective Morris gestured her inside. Thanks for coming in again, Ayanna. We've got some updates we wanted to share with you. The district attorney, a sharp-featured woman named Carson, offered a tight smile as Ayanna took a seat. We've filed formal charges against Eric Wilson, she began without preamble. Assault with a deadly weapon, conspiracy, attempted kidnapping, cyberstalking, and several parole violations from previous convictions. What about the others? Ayanna asked. Tito, Slick, Timothy Davis, and Marcus Allen, Morris clarified, using their real names. They're cooperating with the investigation. Apparently, the prospect of extended prison time has loosened their tongues. Considerably. They're turning on Razor? Ayanna couldn't hide her surprise. Fear is a powerful motivator, Carson said dryly. And your friend's video evidence left them with few options. They're providing information on several other illegal operations Wilson was involved in. Drug trafficking, protection rackets, even a car theft ring. Morris slid a folder across the table. We've also identified the third man from the alley, the one with the spiderweb tattoo. Nathan Reynolds, 3-time felon with connections to a more established gang in the city. Wilson was apparently trying to forge an alliance. Ayanna absorbed this information silently. It was strange to hear these street names. Razor, Tito, Slick, translated into ordinary legal identities. In her mind, they remained the leather-clad figures who had brought chaos into her life, not these mundane names on police reports. What about Nails? She asked. Jessica Thompson. Morris and Carson exchanged glances. Ms. Thompson has been offered a plea deal, Carson explained. Community service instead of jail time in exchange for her testimony. Her involvement was less direct, and her warning to you demonstrates a willingness to separate herself from Wilson's more extreme actions. She's also agreed to participate in a youth outreach program, Morris added, specifically targeting young women at risk of gang involvement. The irony wasn't lost on Ayanna. The woman who had helped monitor her movements was now being positioned as some kind of role model, but then again, people could change. Nails had proven that by warning her about Razor's plan. So what happens now? Ayanna asked. Wilson's case will go to trial, though with the evidence we have, his lawyer is already floating plea options, Carson replied. The others will likely receive reduced sentences in exchange for their cooperation. As for you, your part in this is essentially done, unless we need you to testify. Ayanna nodded, feeling a strange hollowness where she expected relief. Somehow, the legal resolution felt incomplete, too neat and bureaucratic to address the fear and chaos the gang had brought to her community. Outside the station, Ayanna found her father waiting in his car. How'd it go? He asked as she slid into the passenger seat. They're charging Razor, Eric, with everything they can think of. The others are cooperating. James nodded approvingly. Good. That's how these things fall apart. Once loyalty breaks down, the whole structure collapses. Nails got community service. She's going to be working with at-risk girls. A smile tugged at James's lips. Maybe she'll teach them what not to do. The ride home was quiet. Ayanna watching the familiar streets of her neighborhood slide past the window. The same streets that had felt threatening just weeks ago now seemed ordinary again. Children playing, people walking dogs, normal life reasserting itself. At home, a package waited on their doorstep. Inside was a formal letter from the morning show, one of the biggest national talk programs, requesting an interview with the young woman who single-handedly took down a violent gang. James read it over her shoulder, whistling low. That's quite an opportunity. National TV. Ayanna folded the letter and placed it back in the envelope. I'm not interested. No? Why not? She shrugged, searching for words to explain the discomfort she felt. I'm not a hero. I'm someone who was forced to stand up. There's a difference. James studied his daughter's face, recognizing the quiet dignity that had always been her hallmark. Fair enough. It's your story to tell, or not tell. Later that evening, Ayanna's phone lit up with a text from Malik. Check this out. Just hit 5 million views. Attached was a link to a video titled, Girl Power, How One Teen Stood Up to Gang Violence. The thumbnail showed a blurred image of Ayanna in fighting stance, facing off against Razor in the alley. Malik had edited together footage from multiple cameras, including his drone shots, creating a compelling narrative that carefully obscured Ayanna's face while highlighting the gang's aggression and her disciplined response. Comments poured in, by the thousands. This is the most inspiring thing I've seen all year. Who is this girl? She's amazing. The way she stayed calm even when he pulled weapons, absolute legend. Scrolling through the responses, Ayanna felt a mix of emotions, embarrassment at the attention, pride in her skills, and an unexpected sense of responsibility. People were looking to her story for inspiration, for hope. That meant something. Malik's success didn't end with viral videos. The following week, he received an email from the technology department of a prestigious university, offering him a scholarship in cybersecurity and media forensics. They specifically cited his work documenting and securing evidence of criminal activity. They want me to start in their fall program, he told Ayanna and Lena over lunch, his eyes wide with disbelief. Full ride. That's incredible, Lena exclaimed, hugging him tightly. You deserve it. I couldn't have done it without you guys, Malik said, his gaze lingering on Ayanna. Especially you. You gave me something worth documenting. Ayanna smiled, genuinely happy for her friend. You earned this, Malik. Your skills made the difference. Lena's own project was resurging as well. Though her original footage had been deleted in the hack, she had maintained backup drives that contained most of her documentary material. With the added drama of the community center confrontation, her film had evolved from a local interest piece to a powerful statement on community resistance to gang intimidation. The Youth Film Festival accepted my submission, she announced proudly. They want me to present it at the opening night showcase. That's your dream come true, Ayanna said, squeezing her friend's hand. One of them, Lena agreed. Now I just need to finish editing the final cut. I was wondering if you'd be willing to do a proper interview. Nothing that shows your face if you don't want, but your voice, your perspective. It would really complete the narrative. Ayanna hesitated. She'd been avoiding the spotlight, declining the national TV request and several local news interviews. But this was Lena, her best friend, and perhaps telling the story her way, in a thoughtful documentary rather than sensationalized news segments, was the right choice. Okay, she agreed, but I get final approval on what you use. Lena's face lit up. Absolutely, thank you. That evening, Ayanna returned home to find her father sitting on the edge of her bed, staring at a framed photo of her mother. It was unusual to see him in her room, and even more unusual to catch him in such an unguarded moment of remembrance. Dad? She said softly from the doorway. James looked up, and Ayanna was startled to see tears in his eyes. In all the years since her mother's death, she had rarely seen her father cry. I was just thinking, he said, his voice rough, about how proud your mom would be, of the woman you've become. Ayanna sat beside him, leaning her head against his shoulder as she had done as a child. I hope so. I know so, James insisted. You've got her spirit, her strength. They sat in silence for a moment, both feeling the presence of the woman who had shaped their lives. Her in the 9 years before cancer took her, him in the brief but powerful marriage that had changed, him forever. You know, James said finally. "I thought I was protecting you all these years, encouraging your karate training, teaching you to be strong and independent. But somewhere along the way, you became someone who protects everyone else." He turned to look at her directly, tears flowing freely now. "I'm so damn proud of you, Ayanna. So proud." The wall of composure Ayanna had maintained through weeks of tension finally crumbled. She buried her face against her father's shoulder and sobbed, releasing fear, stress, and relief in a flood of emotion. James held her tightly, his own tears falling into her hair, father and daughter finding healing in their shared vulnerability. The following Monday, Ayanna was called into Principal Thornton's office. She entered cautiously, half expecting another lecture about her safety or school policy. Instead, she found Thornton standing with several members of the school board and the superintendent. "Ayanna," Thornton began, his tone more respectful than she'd ever heard from him. "We wanted to speak with you about recent events." Here it comes, she thought. More concern, more suggestions that she switch to online learning. "First," the superintendent said, stepping forward, "we want to apologize." Ayanna blinked in surprise. "Apologize? For not taking the gang threat seriously enough when they first appeared," Thornton explained. "For suggesting you remove yourself from school rather than addressing the underlying safety issues. That was wrong." The school board president, a severe-looking woman in a tailored suit, nodded. "We've implemented new security protocols and anti-gang measures district-wide, and we'd like to invite you to help lead a new peer safety council, students advising administration on real-world concerns." Ayanna was speechless. She'd expected resistance, not recognition. "You've shown extraordinary courage and judgment," the superintendent continued. "The kind of leadership we should be nurturing, not hiding away." After the meeting, Ayanna walked through the school hallways with a strange new awareness. Students and teachers alike greeted her with newfound respect, not celebrity, something deeper. She had become a symbol of resistance, of refusing to be intimidated. It was a mantle she hadn't sought, but one she would try to wear with dignity. The dojo that afternoon, she found Coach Takashi overseeing a small team of volunteers. The interior had been transformed from the wreckage she'd last seen. New mats covered the floor, fresh mirrors lined the walls, and equipment had been replaced and upgraded. "The insurance came through?" she asked, surveying the improvements. "That, and community donations," Takashi replied. "Once word spread about what happened, people wanted to help. We received more than double what we needed for repairs." He led her to the back wall, where a colorful mural was taking shape under the brushes of several art students. The design showed a female figure in mid-kick, surrounded by symbols of strength and resilience. Beneath it, in bold lettering, "You are enough." "We wanted something to inspire the students," Takashi explained, "especially the young girls." Ayanna traced the outline of the figure with her eyes, recognizing her own silhouette though the face remained abstract. "It's beautiful." "The extra donations will fund scholarships," Takashi continued, "for children who couldn't otherwise afford training. The first recipients start next week." That evening, Ayanna found herself drawn to the alley where she had first confronted Tito, the beginning of the escalation that had changed everything. The narrow passage was quiet now, unremarkable, just a shortcut between streets. She walked its length slowly, memories washing over her. The fear she'd felt, but hadn't shown. The calculations she'd made in those tense moments. The decision to stand her ground rather than retreat. In the middle of the alley, Ayanna stopped. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, centering herself as she had been taught. Then, in the silence, she bowed deeply, a gesture of respect, not to an opponent, but to herself, to the journey, to the growth that comes from facing fear. When she straightened, her steps were lighter, her shoulders straighter. She walked out of the alley and into the evening light, calm confidence in every movement. Spring gave way to summer, bringing with it the end of the school year and new beginnings. For Ayanna, the most unexpected arrival was a letter bearing the emblem of the International Martial Arts University in Tokyo. one of the most prestigious training centers in the world. They're offering you a full scholarship? James asked, reading the letter with widening eyes. Room, board, tuition, everything? Ayana nodded, still processing the news herself. Coach Takashi submitted an application on my behalf. He included videos from tournaments plus, she hesitated, footage from the confrontations with Razor's gang. That's incredible, baby girl. James beamed with pride, but Ayana caught the flicker of something else in his expression, the natural sadness of a father facing his daughter's potential departure. I don't know if I want to go, she admitted. It's so far, and I've got responsibilities. Here, the dojo, the community center classes, the safety council at school. James set the letter down and took her hands in his. Ayana, listen to me. You can lead from anywhere. The foundation you've built here won't crumble if you take this opportunity. You wouldn't mind? If I went? James laughed softly. Mind? I'd miss you every day. But this is the kind of chance that changes lives. You deserve it. The question lingered in Ayana's mind over the next few weeks as she continued her regular routine, training, teaching, studying. The deadline for accepting the scholarship wasn't until August, giving her time to consider. One Saturday morning, as she was setting up for her weekly self-defense class at the community center, a woman approached with a young girl trailing behind her. Are you Ayana Carter? The woman asked. Ayana nodded, offering a friendly smile to the girl who seemed to be about 13, with wide eyes and nervous energy. I'm Lisa Williams, and this is my daughter Zoe. She wanted to join your class, if that's possible. Ayana knelt to eye level with Zoe. Have you ever done any self-defense training before? Zoe shook her head, eyes downcast. No, but I need to learn. Something in the girl's tone, a mixture of determination and vulnerability, resonated with Ayana. What made you want to start now? Zoe glanced at her mother, who nodded encouragingly. Some girls at school have been picking on me, pushing me around. Yesterday they took my backpack and threw it in a puddle. The familiar story twisted in Ayana's chest. And you want to fight them? No, Zoe replied, surprising Ayana. I want to be strong enough that I don't have to. Like you. Ayana's eyes widened. Like me? Lisa explained. Zoe saw that video. The one of you standing up to those gang members. She's watched it about 100 times. You're kind of her hero. Warmth spread through Ayana's chest as she looked at the young girl with new understanding. She saw herself at that age, uncertain, searching for strength, needing guidance. Well, Zoe, she said, we start in 5 minutes. Let's find you a spot on the mat. The class went well, with Zoe showing natural aptitude despite her nervousness. Afterward, as the other students filtered out, Ayana spent extra time helping. Zoe perfect a basic blocking technique. Will this really work? Zoe asked, repeating the movement. If someone bigger tries to hurt me? The technique helps, Ayana explained, but the real power comes from in here. She tapped Zoe's chest, over her heart. From knowing your own worth and refusing to let anyone take that from you. Zoe's face lit up with understanding, and in that moment, Ayana saw her own legacy beginning to take shape. Not in trophies or scholarships, but in the spark of confidence ignited in a young girl's eyes. 2 weeks later, Lena's documentary premiered at the Youth Film Festival. Titled, The Girl They Couldn't Break, it told the story of Ayana's stand against gang intimidation, set against the broader context of community resistance and empowerment. The small theater was packed. Students, teachers, community members, even Detective Morris and several other officers. Ayana sat between her father and Coach Takashi, watching her experience unfold through Lena's artistic lens. The film was powerful, juxtaposing interviews with residents about fear and helplessness with the inspiring footage of Ayana's disciplined response to violence. Throughout, Ayana's voice narrated key moments, though her face remained largely obscured, maintaining her privacy while sharing her perspective. When the credits rolled, the audience erupted in applause. Many wiped away tears. Lena was called to the stage, where she accepted the festival's Impact Award with gracious excitement. This isn't just my film, she insisted, gesturing toward Ayana in the audience. This is our community's story of standing up and reclaiming our streets, of refusing to be broken. The documentary quickly gained traction beyond the festival. Local news stations picked it up, then national outlets. It appeared on streaming platforms and social media, shared by activists, teachers, and celebrities alike. Ayana's story, carefully anonymized but powerfully told, became a touchstone for discussions about community safety, female empowerment, and youth leadership. With the attention came tangible change. A wave of initiatives swept through the neighborhood, expanded neighborhood watch programs, youth martial arts scholarships, mentoring relationships between former gang members and at-risk teens. The streets that had once felt threatening now buzzed with purposeful activity and renewed pride. Even City Hall took notice. On a warm July afternoon, the mayor herself attended the grand reopening of Takashi's dojo, now expanded to include a mall, community resource center. In a brief ceremony, she declared the day Ayana Carter Day in recognition of exceptional courage in the face of intimidation and inspiring leadership in community renewal. Ayana, mortified by the attention but polite, accepted the ceremonial certificate with a brief thanks. As cameras flashed, she caught her father's eye in the crowd, his expression a mixture of amusement at her discomfort and immeasurable pride. Later that week, an envelope arrived with no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a letter from Razor, sent from the county jail where he awaited trial. The handwriting was jagged, pressing hard into the paper. "You think you've won? You think this is over? You took everything from me, my crew, my reputation, my freedom. One day I'll get out, and then we'll see who's smiling. You better watch your back for the rest of your life." The letter ended with a crude drawing of a knife. Ayana read it once, her face impassive. Then, without comment, she carried it to the kitchen, struck a match, and watched the paper curl and blacken in the sink until nothing remained but ash. She didn't respond. She didn't need to. Some people would never change, would never understand. That true strength came from building, not breaking. From protecting, not threatening. From standing firm in your truth, not imposing your will on others. James found her there, staring at the ashes. Without asking questions, he put an arm around her shoulders. "You good?" Ayana nodded. "I'm good." The summer passed in a blur of activity. Malik prepared for his university program, packing up his room and transferring his surveillance system to the community center for ongoing security. Lena received a grant to expand her documentary into a feature-length film exploring youth empowerment across the city. Both continued to check in with Ayana regularly about her Tokyo decision. "You have to go," Lena insisted during one of their late-night calls. "This is your dream." "We've all earned this," Ayana replied. "These opportunities, this growth." By August, she had made her decision. The Tokyo scholarship was deferred for 1 year, giving her time to establish her programs more firmly, to ensure the momentum of change continued, to prepare her father for her eventual departure. On the first day of the new school year, Ayana stood before a packed dojo. Students of all ages filled the mats, many new faces among the familiar ones. At the front stood Zoe, now a regular student showing remarkable progress. Near the back, to Ayana's surprise, was Nails, Jessica, fulfilling her community service, hours by assisting with the beginner classes. Ayana surveyed the room, feeling the weight of their expectations, their trust. This was her legacy, not the videos or news stories or mayoral proclamations, but these faces looking to her for guidance. She bowed deeply to them all, then straightened with quiet authority. "Before we begin," she said, her voice clear and confident, "I want you to remember something. Martial arts isn't about fighting. It's about finding the strength within yourself that no one can take away. It's about standing firm in who you are, even when the world tries to break you." She caught Zoe's eye and smiled. "You are enough, exactly as you are. Today we'll practice the forms that help us remember that truth." With that, Ayana began leading the warm-up, moving with the fluid grace that came from years of disciplined training. The students followed, mirroring her movements, beginning their own journeys toward inner strength. Outside, the mural of Ayana in mid-kick gleamed in the morning sun, a silent testament to courage. Above it, newly painted words captured the essence of her story. Strength isn't about how hard you hit, it's about how much you refuse to be broken. Have you ever wondered what untapped strength lies within you, waiting for the moment when fear meets courage? Like, subscribe, and share for more stories about ordinary heroes who discover their extraordinary power when it matters most.